Members of the Imperial military were responsible for planning and conducting some of the most horrendous orders carried out by the fearsome Galactic Republic, but we can't deny they had some serious style. In today's video, I will cover each of the standard uniforms and what each different colour stood for in the ranks of the Galactic Empire. Now, many of us know that George Lucas took inspiration from historical groups when it came to his movies. One of these were the Nazis, who besides being known for their evil views, did dress their officers incredibly well, most notably in Hugo Boss designed and produced uniforms. This translates across to the Galactic Empire, where we see the masses of Imperial troops commanded by their cold and calculated officers clad in impressive uniforms. Despite the different colours of uniforms, there were some similarities across many of the different ranks and departments. The uniforms for officers were almost always made out of a material called Gable wool, tailored into a double-breasted tunic and round neck collar, with matching trousers, a belt, a pair of black boots and a Gable wool cap. Whilst they would not wear their medals as standard, officers would wear a rank insignia plaque and up to 4 code cylinders in pockets on the front of the tunic. Code cylinders were used to identify their bearers and would also grant access to security protected documents and areas. Starting off with olive grey, which is the most recognisable and common colour seen throughout the films. Seen worn by high-ranking officers such as Grand Moff Tarkin and Admiral Piet, this colour was standard issue for Imperial Army and Navy officers. Imperial ground commanders would often supplement their uniform with a helmet and body armour. An example of this can be seen worn by General Veers, who was famous for his leadership during the Imperial assault during the Battle of Hoth. A variation on the standard dress was the black uniform. Black uniforms were worn by stormtrooper officers and non-commissioned officers, also known as non-coms, who were essentially lower-ranking commanders within the military. Whilst allowing them to stand out from their officer counterparts, the black uniform was to denote their role at the tactical level, usually commanding within the field. Stormtrooper officers also carried on this tradition, despite being commissioned officers. Imperial Navy troopers wore a similarly black uniform, however, wore a distinctive large black protective helmet in varying forms. Whilst non-commissioned troopers wore the standard black tunic, the lowest ranks wore black boiler suits. Imperial Navy troopers, as their name suggests, were the soldiers of the Navy and would carry out tasks separate from the white armoured stormtroopers. White uniforms were worn by Imperial Security Bureau or ISB officers. This is first seen worn by Colonel Yularen in the conference room on board the Death Star. This signifies his position as a senior officer within the Imperial Security Bureau. Again, in Andor, this uniform is seen being worn by other members of the ISB. ISB officers and agents wore contrasting black trousers and occasionally wore black caps. Director Krennic also wore a white uniform as the director of the Imperial Military Department of Advanced Weapons Research, which was a department within the Imperial Security Bureau. Interestingly, he wore a cape, which was likely through his own choice to show his arrogant and self-important beliefs. The Grand Admirals, such as Thrawn and Sloane, also wore a white uniform. These were slightly different, as this consisted of a tunic with gold epaulets on the shoulders, signifying their high rank within the Navy. Differing slightly in design from the other uniforms, these tunics were double-breasted rather than the standard issue single-breasted uniforms. They also wore white trousers rather than the black that the ISB wore. Imperial technicians wore grey boiler suit uniforms. These uniforms were not as tailored as their officer counterparts, and they were often less fitted and were made of fire-resistant and easily washable materials to complement their work that would involve maintenance and logistics on board Imperial ships and bases. Their boiler suits also featured more pockets to store tools and equipment, and were much more like the Imperial Troopers design. Scientists and technicians working for the Tarkin Initiative, such as Galen Erso, wore an in-between uniform that was harder wearing and durable, but also denoted their importance within the Empire, despite many being part of the regime against their will. Their uniform was green and grey, with department identification patches on their upper arms. The Imperial Press Corps wore blue-grey uniforms similar in style to the Navy and Army officers. Their Imperial Press Corps were responsible for creating Imperial propaganda and suppressing stories and rumours of rebels on Imperial-controlled planets, often using stormtroopers to assist with a heavy hand. So there you go, that's about it. Now you know all about the different coloured uniforms within the Imperial military. Make sure you hit subscribe and give us a thumbs up and comment if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.